911. That's me! That's me! That's me!
Happy New Year, spooky kids. How's everyone doing this week?
Are you looking? I'm doing all right. Doing all right. I got a new camera. Excited.
Yeah.
Can take pictures again. That require flash.
That was a little adventure that Kelly and I took yesterday.
Yeah.
She tag along because she was getting off Marketplace, didn't want to go alone, which is smart. So we went out, got the camera, and then we went and got Mexican food.
I watch enough horror movies. I know how that shit could turn out.
Yeah, once I saw that guy, though, I was like, oh, if this dude tried anything, Kelly would beat the dog shit out of him. He was like a nerdy, like skinny, like computer dad, you know?
We've seen movies, though.
Those are the ones that'll get you. Is the ones you don't think are going to get you.
Yep.
That's true. He did have a little Dahmer going on.
He did have a kind of a Dahmer vibe.
Next thing you know, you're getting shoot in the neck. Waking up in basements, getting your fucking toes sucked on.
Right? Like, I like to think I'd be a final girl, but I don't want to be in the final girl sort of situation.
Now, Germ, you may not know this about Kelly yet. I've known her for a very long time. She's a very punchy person.
Not as much. Not as much.
Not anymore.
Later in life, but
there's been some incidences. Not anymore, but in her 20s. I have seen her fight multiple men, demolish mosh pits. She is not shy about throwing a hook into your chin if you piss her off. Well, wasn't the last one a girl that made fun of you for trying to bum a cigarette? You went and punched her in the face?
That was some years ago, but yeah, that was up there.
That was a while ago.
No, she was making fun of me for asking, and then she's like, "You want this?" And I was fucking pissed drunk at that point. Like, after a while of her being like, "Oh, you want this?" I was like, "Excuse me," and I just I excused myself from the table that I was at, and then just calmly walked over and punched her in the mouth and sat back down.
All right.
I don't condone violence anymore, but I mean, that was a memorable one. Shut up, Chris. Don't look at me like that.
I didn't say a word, Kelly.
I've calmed down in my later years, for sure.
I spent most of the day pounding around Detroit. Went to Slow's Barbecue. I had me some wings and mac and cheese. That was really good. Just getting some work done up there, but I've had a pretty fun day. Between that and yesterday, there's been like some really silly shit going on in the I'm not going to get into it, but in the Michigan indie scene, that was quite hilarious to watch unfold live yesterday. It was pretty fucking priceless. But yeah, that and I watched like over Christmas time. I watched like a lot of fucking movies, so I even had to figure out what I was going to talk about tonight and whatnot. And I packed a lot in before we did our top 10 episode, just because there was ones that had slid by that had made other people's top 10s, and I was like, well, I should at least give them a shot. So like, something in the dirt, bones and all things like that, I really wedged in there at the end. So
yeah, I accidentally watched another Christmas movie, so I'm going to talk about a Christmas movie.
That's fine. I watched a bunch of Christmas movies on Christmas, but I'm not going to talk about it. Like how many times do you need to listen to somebody ramble on about Black Christmas? Or
right. Yeah, I didn't realize this was a Christmas movie going into it, and it's really not that centered around Christmas. It just takes place on Christmas, but we'll get into that.
Nobody asked me how my day was.
How was your day, Germ? How was your day?
Thank you, Kelly.
I have no manners. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I just wanted to put that. My day was fine. I woke up at 3 a.m. for work, went to work, came home, took a nap. Here I am. I was just being goofy.
Well, now I feel bad. I don't know if I want to keep going with this whole thing. I think I might just quit.
Well, what about the shirt you said you were going to send me? You could send me that shirt, and then everything will be fine.
The shirt I said I was going to send you.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 episodes ago, there was a long sleeve shirt with like a light tube on the sleeve.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Deathmatch Elite shirt.
You gotta remind me of this stuff. Like, I mean it when I say stuff like that, but I have so much going. Like, my inbox is on fire at all times, setting these shows up, and with all this other crap. So things do sometimes slide through the cracks. I do have that for you. I'll send it off. Just remind me.
Big dog. I'm just playing. Don't feel bad. Let's talk about horror movies. Blah, blah, blah.
Let's talk about horror. Yeah, why don't you go first, Germ?
Yeah.
What you got? What you watching?
Well, I know that both of you have already talked about this movie, but since you had talked about it multiple times, I had to go ahead and watch it because when somebody tells me a movie makes them feel dirty for watching it or makes them feel upset for watching it.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Oh, I need that. I need that jam in my eyeballs. Like, sallow angst, in a glass cage. Yeah, that is, I need something bleak and disturbing. And so I checked out Speak No Evil from this year.
Yeah.
And I lived up to everything you said.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was prepared for it because you guys had both talked about it. So
I went in blind.
Huh?
Yeah, I pretty much
I went in blind. I knew nothing about what I was about to see. They
added
it on Shudder as an original. It had a cool cover, and I was like, I'll watch this. So I had no idea what I was in store for.
Yeah, the only thing I knew was real bleak, and that's because Chris told me. But other than that, I didn't really watch any previews. I did really enjoy the cover, though. The cover did draw me in. Like, I've been eyeballing that for weeks before I watched it just because of the cover. So,
yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I was expecting, from everything you said, something more like one of those French extremity films, or maybe like, I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting. Something like a Serbian film, maybe.
No, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, no, it was much more. It was much.
You were
more
looking
artful.
like you thought you were going to be at like high tension.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. But it was much more tactful than that.
Mm-hmm.
And also bizarre. I didn't see the twist coming, and I thank you for not mentioning said twists. Or why it was called Speak No Evil. Although, right away, there's something wrong with the little boy, that can't speak, and you don't learn later on what it is. And I just love the beat. Like, it was so beautiful. It was so well shot, and the cinematography was amazing. I am thankful that both of you spoke about this film because I would have never checked it out otherwise. It was kind of nondescript. I had to search for it on the Shudder search engine, and when I did, kind of luckily, I was kind of prepared for the worst of the worst, and I was pleasantly surprised. There were characters that cared about, and a story that like legitimately went somewhere, and an underlining theme that it was hard to like really put my finger on. I'm like, so we're not supposed to trust people. We're not like. I love when he asked, why are you doing this? And he was just because you let me. It's like, oh shit, you didn't fight back. You did not fight back.
No, because
there's so many times they had opportunities to leave that situation, but they stayed there. And I think that really speaks to like today's society. It's like, if you have a chance to leave a situation, instead of staying with it, instead of keeping with that relationship, freaking leave. I think that's a good message for a lot of people that are in like either toxic relationships or whatever the case may be. Sure, they're not cutting out your tongue and stoning you to death, but but still, I think that's the message to the film is, if you see something bad, you see some red flags, just fucking get out of there. And I think that was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed Speak No Evil, and I can't recommend it enough.
I think that and Barbarian kind of had the same theme where it was like people dealing in pleasantries when they're not feeling comfortable, and like speaking to maybe you should listen to your base instincts when something doesn't feel right, because the whole movie is a progression of interpersonal transgressions. And they start very small and slow, and it just like builds on like, what can I get away with? What can I make these people do out of politeness? And it is, when we talked about how bleak and dark it wasn't so much in like gore and murder, it's the tone and subject matter.
And
it's just a nasty movie, like a gnarly fucking movie, and it gets under your skin a little bit, and it does it without you even realizing it. Like it gets under there before you even realize it's there yet,
Yeah, man, if you're trying to like cheer up or already in a bad mood, don't watch this one.
Or if you're somebody who, like myself, who's completely numb to cinema and you just want to watch something where people need to learn a lesson, you might enjoy it.
Yeah.
It all depends.
I did enjoy it.
How freaking damaged you are.
Right.
Well, what's your rating on it?
Oh, 4.5.
4.5. Yeah, I think it's a very good and important film, but it's also one I don't think I'll need to watch again for a long time. Like, its impact is so strong that like I remember it vividly, and not a lot of movies. Like, there's movies I've watched. Like, I went through my letterbox. It was like, oh fuck, I forgot I watched that last week. I didn't forget watching Speak No Evil. It fucking sticks there.
Yeah. I watched it right before the New Year's podcast because I've seen so many people put it on their end of the year list, so I wanted to double check it out to make sure if it was going on my list. But yeah, it was definitely an honorable mention. It was very enjoyable, but absolutely depressing.
All right, well, I'll go next. The first one I'm going to talk about was one of those movies I squeezed in to see if it was going to be on my end of the year list, because a lot of people were talking like it really got to them, and it was a really well made movie. It didn't really land with me like it did with a lot of other people. In fact, I questioned to call it a horror movie. There are a lot of very deep rooted elements of horror in it, but all in all, I don't believe it's a horror story. And this is Nanny, which is a Hulu original. It just came out like a week or so ago. Mm-hmm. Directed by Nikayatu Jasuyu. I probably murdered that. Please don't be upset with me, Nikayatu Asuyu. I'm just a dumb white man. It has really beautiful cinematography. There's some cool stuff that goes on with like aquatic horror I wasn't expecting. Great acting. It's a small movie, very small cast. Basically, it's a story of a I believe she's Sudanese woman that moves to New York, and she's basically working as a nanny because she wants to save up money to bring her sister and her kid in to live with her. So she's taking care of this rich family's child in hopes to make enough money to bring her own child over from, I believe it's the Sudan, but I'm not 100% positive on it. It's pretty dark. It's really well made, but again, I don't really think it was a horror movie. I didn't regret watching it, but I'll probably never watch it again. I thought it was pretty decent. Like I said, it was beautifully shot, acted. The aquatic horror stuff was really cool. But there's also like a really weird punch out ending, and like it's really abrupt. And there's also some stuff that was like serious subject matter that I thought the characters didn't really react realistically to. So, for that, I give it 3 out of 5. It's not horrible. I just don't really consider it a horror movie, so just know that going in. It is a good movie. It's a well-made movie. I was entertained by it, but it wasn't really a horror movie. So that was The Nanny, Hulu original. What you got, Kels?
The first one. Well, go on.
Let Germ talk.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to ask, if you don't consider it a horror movie, what type of film would you consider it? Because I saw the trailer and it definitely intrigued me, and it definitely gave off like a horror and or horror adjacent vibe. So if you wouldn't call it a horror film, how would you refer to it?
A dark psychological thriller. Like, would you consider Jacob's Ladder a horror movie?
Yeah,
that's hard to say, but I think so. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying, though? Like, you have to think about it, and it's not. It doesn't even have that many horror elements in it. But what I'm saying is, the horror itself is not what's front and center, but it is happening. And But the way it's happening is it's all done in a metaphor sense to show you what's going on with the woman and her feelings and like what's going on inside of her. So it's more like a manifestation of the horror she's dealing with inside, like missing her child, and like money gets weird with these rich people, and like she actually does the opposite of Speak No Evil, where she dispenses her pleasantries pretty fast once the money gets weird, you know, because she doesn't give a fuck about that family or their. Well, she likes the kid, but she wants her child, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that sounds awesome, and
it does actually.
Yeah, I want to check that out now.
Yeah, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. Like this is another one I didn't even watch the trailer on. I just heard it on a couple lists. I went in blind. I like doing that a lot with like movies that like people recommend. They're like, this is really good, and just go in blind. Fuck, no expectations, you know. And I think had I known I wasn't really strapping in for a horror movie, but more of like a psychological thing, I think I probably would have enjoyed it just a little more. But yeah, it was good.
One of my movies is the same way. I'll get to that. How it's I wouldn't exactly call it a horror movie, and you know, it's more about like the internal like mom's struggles. But we'll get there. Okay. First movie I'm going to talk about though is 1993's Chill Factor, also called Demon Possessed when it was released. I heard. This one was directed by Chris. I think it's an Arrow. It was a Arrow release.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Directed by Chris Webster, who was an executive producer on the original Hellraiser and the Heathers, which was interesting.
Shit, that is some notable credits right there.
Yeah.
I love Heathers.
I do love the Heathers. That's
I don't think Heathers would ever be able to be made now.
No, absolutely not.
Didn't they try and make a Heathers TV series a few years back and it tanked right away?
I think they did try. I didn't see it at all, but I think I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all, but I wouldn't fucking doubt it at all. I mean, I can see a potentially interesting TV series being launched from that, but it probably wouldn't have the same tone.
For sure. Well, anyway, Chill Factor. This follows a group of kids, like three couples. They're all kind of sitting in a diner. I think it's in like northern Wisconsin or somewhere real snowy, when two of the guys in the group challenge each other to a snowmobile race. It's getting real, like there's a snowstorm coming, and you know, the waitress is like, you guys need a place to race. You got to go out to the, yeah, here we go. It's pretty fucking cheesy. You guys need
the cover has me already. It's just got a dude like in a fucking dark suit and a tricked out snowmobile. And it says the Chill Factor in old English.
Yeah, it's it really reads as like a 80s movie, and I think when I was reading about it, I think it was filmed probably like 5 years prior, like, you know, late 80s, but released in 93. So it does have that feel. But like, rather than wait till the next day, they go out to the lake, you know, even though the snowstorm's coming, because they're going to fucking race. Well, the one dude, of course, there's an accident, you know, dude hits a tree, fucking gets a head injury. They can't get back, but they find this abandoned camp in the woods. And, you know, they start looking around it, and there's like paper clippings. Apparently it used to belong to a satanic cult. Well, while one dude's going to get help, they find this Ouija board like thing called the Devil's Eye. It's like a big pentagram, and it's got like this eyeball in the middle of it. And of course they play it. Well, from that point on, a bunch of fucking demonic possession slasher shit goes down. It's all very 80s. There's one part in this, well, not one part. There's a big chunk of this movie that's pretty racist. Pretty unnecessary.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that. But, like, other than that, the movie was pretty fucking enjoyable. You know, there's some demonic possession. It all kind of leads up into an epic snowmobile race.
Sweet.
Yeah. I mean, it was all right. A lot of like guitar solos, like while they're racing, going on, like it really reads as like one of those like 80s like ski movies, like I got the girl, man. But it like then they mix in the demonic possession and like some slasher shit. It's a fun watch, other than the racist stuff.
It sounds like Evil Dead on snowmobiles.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, other than the racist factor, it was pretty enjoyable. Like, it was kind of a slow build in a way, like slower than it should have been, but it was all right. I'd give it a 3, 2.5, 3. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a ton of fun. It sounds like something I'd thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, sans the racism, but
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
than that, like goofy.
I did instantly regret asking that question. I was like,
Yeah.
never I shouldn't
Yeah.
ask that. But
Yeah.
like I
regret
remembered
even.
like Skinner, where they had that scene where like he skinned the black guy and then put his like skin on and decided to start talking jive and all that shit. I
Yeah.
was like, this
Yeah. It
did
was
not
like,
age
it was
well.
real cringy. Like, I was like, oof, oof, that's not good, you know? Like, oh. But other than that, it was enjoyable. The snowmobile racings with the guitars, like that was fun. There were some decent kills, you know.
Cool.
Very, very like highly sexual without actually showing nudity. Because you got a bunch of kids trapped in a cabin. Of course, that's going down. But yeah, it's on Tubi. Chill factor.
Oh,
Yep.
very, very, very cool.
This sounds pretty up my alley. I'm gonna have to check this out. In fact, I noticed that almost all Arrow movies are on Tubi. So,
which is wild because if you pay full price for them, they're like $40 each for
well, not only
physical
that,
copy.
they have their own streaming service too. I almost paid for it, and then I realized all the movies were on Tubi.
Right. As long as you can sit through those ads, why not?
It doesn't bother me at all. Like I grew up watching like Sven Gulli and Joe Bob Briggs. That's how I spent Christmas as I watched Joe Bob Briggs double feature his Gulag. That was a Christmas horror story and Don't Open Till Christmas. So one was super super sleazy and one was well made. But I'm not even going to talk about those.
Cool. But my next movie is Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
I haven't seen this yet.
Yeah, this is one that slid through the cracks for me this year. I think it's because it stars Pete Davidson and looks like a fucking like it wouldn't really land with me. Just generational difference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it was sold as a Gen Z slasher, and but I heard so many people talk highly of it that I had to check it out, and I had a friend send it to me for a soberversary gift, and I'm very thankful that they did now because oh my goodness, it's when it was announced by it's an A24 film, so
Is it?
yeah, it's an A24 film, so it's not going to be just a simple slasher film. And when you see a cast of all young people and in the trailer they're being super annoying, you know that something's up, something different's going to happen. And there's it's just really smart and really well done. And the director never did a horror movie before. It's a female director, Helena Reijn, Reijn. I think she's Swedish or something like that. That's horrible. I'm being horrible now. I should have wrote this down. I'm sorry.
That's right. You heard me butcher the director's name, the Nanny. The second I started even enunciating that, I was like, I regret this decision.
But yeah, she had never done a horror movie before, and A24 actually came to her with the script, and she thought it was so smart and so well done that she was right on board. And then when they started getting the cast for the film, if you look up the cast members, they've all been in really impressive projects. And then you got Scott Davidson's the fellow's name?
Pete
Davidson. See, I don't
the
even
guy
know
that's making millions of dollars for Taco Bell commercials where he literally just takes a bite and goes,
Yeah. Like all I really know of him is from Saturday Night Live, and that his personal life, he's kind of an annoying douchebag, but like that's his character in the movie is an annoying douchebag, and he plays that role well. And I don't want to spoil it too much for anybody that hasn't seen it, because this is one of the ones where if you know how it ends, the movie's ruined. The movie's completely ruined. So this is definitely one that I was happy I went into blind. And it's just, it was a lot smarter and a lot more creative than I thought it was going to be. Like the cinematography, like when they talked about the lighting, how they shot it all in the dark, so they had to do like weird lighting tricks. Like there's a scene where one of the characters is just lighting it up with their cell phone, and then another scene where one of the characters is wearing a bunch of neon shit because they were, having a dumb party and doing drugs. So, yeah, it's you can also tell that it's influenced heavily from American slasher films and Italian giallo films.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's got that.
It's got giallo elements to it.
To me, it did because it had that whole who done it vibe, and when you have that who done it thing, people are like, oh well, that's a murder mystery. Well, giallo is primarily murder mysteries, mostly, black glove killers and knives and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. And it's just really smart, really really well done. I'm happy I saw it. The cast, the crew, the director killed it, and I really hope that this director, she does more horror films because she really did a great job with this one. Yeah, I think I gave it a 4.5.
Yeah, really?
Wow.
4.5. Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a shot. Weirdly enough, Pondo raved about it too, and on paper it looked like something Pondo would have hated. So maybe I should say fucking give it a shot. I'll give it a whirl for the next one.
I got a physical copy real cheap off of Amazon. Well, actually, a friend sent it to me, so I hope he didn't pay too much off of Amazon. I'm not sure if it's streaming anywhere yet or not.
I don't think it is.
I'll check
that out. I think it's just for rent.
But yeah, it's definitely worth if it's at Redbox or whatever, it's definitely worth renting. Check it out. If you see it for sale for a decent price, pick it up. I would definitely add it to my collection again if I had to buy it for myself. So yeah. Okay.
Good to know.
All right. I'm trying to decide what I want to talk about. I've watched so many damn movies and I know I can't talk about them all. You know what? I'm going to talk about, I mentioned this in my honorable mentions on our top 10 episode, but I do want to talk about this because I don't think a lot of people are watching it. And I think that it's a shame because it is a fantastic movie, and that's Saloum, which is a Sudanese horror movie that's on Shudder. It's a Shudder original, and I think a lot of people are passing over because the cover makes it look like a weird Western. Like it's like a small child with like a 6-shooter walking into the water. I'm sure you've seen the cover.
I have.
Going through Shudder. This was a fantastic movie. I didn't realize it was going to go full bore with the horror like it does. It nearly made it on my top 10 list. It unfortunately got bumped by Adult Swim's Yule Log. But basically what you have is the town they live in is in like political upheaval, and they have these 3 guys that are like mercenaries, and they, you can hire them to do shit. They're like the fucking evil A-team, you know what I'm saying? Like one of them is like the leader, one of them like deals a lot in like voodoo and like witchcraft. Like he's always like blowing this powder in people's faces that knocks them out, and he's running around barefoot with dreadlocks, like doing spells and shit on people. And then you have the other guy who's just like a fucking brute who looks exactly like Mo Atlas. If you gave Mo Atlas a blonde, like a bleach blonde beard and some pink lensed shades. It was really weird. It was like watching Mo Atlas speak French the entire time. So they do this mission where they kill a bunch of local government guys and abduct a drug lord's son that they're going to return to the drug lord, right? And they get on this plane to go return this kid, and they find somebody had cut the fuel line on the plane. So they can't get the whole way there. They land it in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, all right, there's this town called Saloum I grew up in. It's kind of like a hippie community, but like everyone there, you don't pay rent when you come and stay at this place, but everyone has a different job every day and everyone has to kick in. So they go to this place and they're kind of trying to lay low. A police captain shows up and they can't figure out if they're there because of them or if it's like just a coincidence because he seems to really know the guy that runs the place very well. And then this thing like spirals into like full on demonic horror in a way that I haven't really seen before. There's a lot of cool monster like creature effects, like the demons. They look like people, but they have like fucking horns, but you can't see any of their features because it looks like there's a perpetual swell of bugs like floating around them and shit. So basically, it's them just trying to survive that, get out of the area. There's some lore to it. There's a really cool little B storyline that sets the whole fucking thing up that I didn't see coming. Like they were giving you clues of it the whole time, and then they kind of punch you with it. It is subtitled, which doesn't bother me at all. I don't mind reading a movie, especially when it's such a high quality movie. You know what? You know what this reminds me of? If you've ever seen the movie City of God, it's like that if it was a fucking horror movie.
I love that movie. City of God was fucking great.
Yeah. So I would highly recommend Saloum. I give it 4.5 out of 5. It almost made my top 10 list. I definitely will be revisiting because I feel that there was more stuff going on that I was missing as well. And I kind of want to like unpack the layers of it because I just had so much fun with it. But also it was one of those things where I really enjoy a horror movie that takes place in like a very foreign culture to me because it makes everything feel different and new, you know, like that's something I'm comfortable with at all. So it has like its own like vibe that you don't really get from other movies when, you know, you're completely out of your element, even in the normal dialogue scenes. So highly recommend it. Check out Saloum. It's on Shudder. It's a Shudder original. Give it a watch. And it's not even long. It's like 80 minutes. So check it out.
Yeah, I remember one of my best friends, she was raving about this film, and I kind of forgot about it till you brought it up. So I'm glad that you talked about it.
Yeah, I've definitely passed over it a couple times myself.
I think the cover gives it a. I see the cover, and I kind of, for some reason, kind of have in my mind what I think that movie's going to be. It's one of those covers, you know, and it's not that at all. Like it has like a child with a revolver on the cover, and that has such like it has a lot to do with one small thing in the movie, but I mean there's barely any children in this fucking thing at all, you know. And there's like a weird like subtext of like Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, which I fucking loved. So yeah, it was cool.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, the next one I watched is also a new one this year that I've seen on a couple lists. I wasn't as thrilled with this. This is The Invitation 2022. They just added it to Netflix, I believe, within the last like week and a half or so. It follows a girl named Evie. She takes gets a DNA ancestry kit, and she's contacted by a distant relative from England. He wants to meet her. She goes to meet him, and since she thought she was like one of the last of her family members, like he invites her to this family reunion over in England, and she goes, wanting to meet more family. In England, she stays at this huge mansion and quickly starts falling for the Lord of the Manor, who is not her cousin, by the way. Oddly, you notice right away that she's like one of the only females in the family, and like that's a weird vibe. You also find out really early into the movie that the former lady of the house has recently died. So like instantly you get this real weird culty sort of vibe, and there's definitely some supernatural shit going on with like the maids and shit, while Evie's just kind of fallen for Walt, the Lord of the Manor. This one was all right. It was a slow build, and when it does twist into something, I didn't exactly see it coming. But I don't know. I thought it was kind of boring, like personally. Like all in all, it does an okay job at building up suspense, but like ultimately, I don't know. It didn't hit it for me. There's a couple Easter eggs that I don't want to say what it is, but it definitely like alludes to what that twist that I was referring to is. Kind of some older horror literature. That's the most I'm going to say about that, but it was all right. It was all right, but I wasn't thrilled about it. I'd probably give it a 2.
Yeah, I haven't heard much good stuff about it.
No.
Yeah, a two rating from Kelly. I don't think I want to check that out. So thank
Yeah.
you for watching it. So I
Two
don't
and a
have
half
to.
at most. Like, I mean, it had good production and good acting and everything, but the story just kind of like fell short for me. I just found it kind of boring, really. It was kind of predictable, kind of boring. You know, it was hard to
Yeah,
get through too. Like, I tried watching it a couple times, and in the beginning, like, it just lost me, until the stuff. When that twist happens, it's probably about three-quarters into the movie, and that's when stuff like really picks up. But by that point, I was just kind of bored with it, I think.
yeah. I don't care if a movie is good or bad. If it's
Yeah.
boring, that is the ultimate sin in my book. You know,
Hmm.
if I'm checking my watch and be like, "Oh shit,"
Yeah. How
it's
much
only
is
been
left
20
in this
minutes.
movie? Yeah, that's how I know it was like three-quarters of the way through because I'm like, how much is left in this movie?
Rough,
But it was just like, yeah, it didn't do it for me.
rough.
Too. Yeah, I mean, it's worth a watch, maybe. It kind of like that. They were going for like a gothic sort of feel, big budget gothic movie. It just didn't do it for me. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Go ahead, Germ.
oh no. What were you gonna say, Chris? I was just gonna jump
Uh,
into my next one.
yeah, a lot of people that have actually seen this, most didn't really like it, and which is sad because it was cool to see that the studios like took a swing on a
Hmm.
theater gothic horror,
Yeah.
which is something you saw a lot in like the 90s, but you don't really get anymore. So it sucks that it didn't really land, but
And I
they,
didn't
they couldn't all
hate
be
it.
good this year, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't hate it, but it's definitely not something that I would have paid to see in the theater or, even rent. Like, wait till it's streaming. It is worth a watch, but it's nothing to, I don't know. If you're bored and can't find anything else to watch, throw it in.
If you're bored and can't find anything else, that's a hell of a selling point. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, well, my next one was a movie that slid under my radar, of course, because I was probably 12 years old at the time and it just didn't look that interesting. But I'm glad I picked it up during Scream Factory's last sale. It is 1990s The Guardian. And yeah, it's with
William Friedkin,
yes, William Friedkin. And with the recent
Tree People,
revival, what's that?
Tree People.
Yes, Tree People indeed. With the recent resurgence and interest in folk horror, I'm actually surprised that more people weren't talking about this when Severin put out that big box set of folk horror.
I love folk
Because
horror.
this definitely belongs in that category of folk horror.
Hmm.
It actually drops a lot of folk horror names and lores that they don't go into any sort of like description of, but they just sort of like, oh, and Pyewacket and this and that, and just names that if you are a horror fan, if you're a fan of uh folk horror, you will pick up on little bits and pieces here and there. But coming out in 1990, it was 1990 wasn't a good time for horror, and if you weren't a slasher movie, it probably wasn't going to get much press. And I feel like that was the case with The Guardian because I can't remember when it came out. It looked like it was going to be a killer nanny. The trailer. I
Yes.
remember as a kid, it was going to be like a killer nanny film, and I
I
was like,
can't picture it. Oh.
whatever. And I always put it on a back burner, but somewhere back in my mind, I still remembered it. And when the sale, Scream Factory had their sale, I was like, 10.99. I'll try it. I remember seeing the trailer. I'll watch a killer nanny movie, and there was so much more to it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and being William Friedkin film, everything about the direction is great. The cast is pretty solid. Yeah, there's some great gore scenes from, but it's not like overly gory. There's some
No.
great gore though, and just an original story. Feeding children to a tree, feeding babies to a tree, is definitely an original idea. And
I recently seen a movie like this where they were feeding. It's something that was on Shudder. I want to say The Mandrake, maybe. something like that. Anyway, go on. Yeah.
So like another like a more modern folk
horror. Yeah, where they're feeding children and shit to the tree. I can't exactly.
I think we talked about it like 2 or 3 episodes back.
I think so.
Yeah.
The Guardian or Mandrake?
Mandrake.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember we talked about that. But I'm only going to give it a 3 just because of it did lag in places, and of course, like a folk horror movie that comes out in the early 90s, it's got some plot holes and stuff. But if you love William Friedkin and you love folk horror, you should definitely track it down and check it out. I'm not sure if it's streaming anywhere or not offhand. I wouldn't doubt if it is, because it's a 1990 film and it was put out by Scream Factory. So
it looks like you could watch it on Tubi.
Oh, really? Because I'm seeing rented on Amazon, but yeah, Tubi. Okay.
Letterboxd tells you everything.
Ooh la la.
This movie is a movie I got very young. When I was really young, my dad, for some reason, was interviewed on HBO. I don't know why. I've never seen the footage, but they had him on some like news style thing they had. And when he came back, he had like this box of VHS tapes that they had just given him for free. That's how I ended up watching The Watchers, which is one of Kelly and I's favorite movies.
I love that movie. That's one of the best Bigfoot movies.
Sasquatch movie with Ironside. But this was also in there. I think one of the reasons a lot of people didn't really give it a look is the name itself, The Guardian, as well, is kind of a nondescript name and doesn't really do a good job of telling you what the movie's about. The trailer is misleading. But the fact that it's William Friedkin, people should have watched it. I mean, the guy made The fucking Exorcist, I mean, the guy made fantastic movies, not only horror movies, but in multiple genres. Like, he is a heavyweight filmmaker. So the name William Friedkin alone should have gotten people to be like, I'm going to give this thing a shot, but they really didn't. But I loved the shit out of this when I was a kid. I was really young when I watched it, and I was probably a little too young, and that movie fucking was weird. And then it was one of those things where I watched it like throughout the years, and I've never heard anyone ever even mention it before tonight. Like, I've never been able to talk about this movie with anyone, but I love The Guardian. He gave it 3. I would give it 4 just because it has maybe a nostalgia place in my heart, but I love the shit out of that movie. I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I don't even recognize the cover. I just pulled it up. No.
Well, the cover art's generic too. It's just like a woman in the doorway, I believe, right?
Yep. It's like a blue light. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like some cloaked woman in a doorway.
It's funny that the whole idea came from a real life incident with William Friedkin. He was saying in the making of or the documentary where they interviewed him on the extras of the Blu-ray, he had a nanny and they went out of town, and the nanny had a friend over and some guys over, and things got stolen from his house. And it just sort of snowballed from that idea, combined with a crappy script that the studio wanted him to make. So he took that script, combined it with what happened to him in real life, and voila, we get this early 90s folk horror masterpiece, I would say. Because I'm not a huge folk horror fan, but especially for something later on, like 1990 was not a great time for horror in general, and especially misadvertised folk horror. It's a smart film, well done, and deserves a watch.
All right, yeah, I that does sound kind of up my alley.
You'd love it, Kelly. You really would.
Oh yeah.
It definitely
I like folk horror.
Yeah. And you should watch Eyes of Fire, Kelly, if you haven't watched that yet. That's a great folk horror. It's on Shudder.
Okay.
So I'm looking at my letterbox. So there's literally like 4 movies I want to talk about, and I know I only got one left, so I'm just gonna pick one. Just because I don't think anyone's talking about this movie, and I'm not really gonna paint it in a positive light, but I do want to talk about it because it's by a director I really love, and that's Neil Blomkamp's Demonic. Neil has never made a horror movie before. And I'll get to it in a second. He has worked in horror, but up to this, it's been very heady sci-fi. He made District 9, he made Elysium, and he made Chappie. All very gritty but heady sci-fi. You know, like he always had a way of painting the future in a way that was like dirty and gross, which I always really liked. And he had kind of like his own unique voice. And after he made, I believe it was Chappie, and that bombed out. It didn't do well for him. Elysium bombed out as well, but I think Elysium's a fantastic movie. He did this series that is now on Netflix, but I was originally watching it on Hulu, called Oak Studios. And it was a series of shorts that he made where he was testing new special effects technologies that they were coming up with. And he made a horror one called Firebase, which I cannot recommend enough. You can watch it free on YouTube. It is fucking awesome. It's basically about a skin-ripping demon in the fucking trenches of Vietnam, the Vietnam War, and it's fucking nuts. So when I found out his next feature was going to be a horror movie and it was going to be a technology-driven possession movie, I was like, this could be very interesting. So it's called Demonic. It came out in 2021. It was not good. There was a lot of cool ideas in it, but you ever just watch a movie and like the ideas are there, but for some reason, and you can't really put your finger on it, like nothing's really landing. Like the casting just kind of seems weird and things just kind of seem off.
Kind of reminds me of like any Slender Man movie, because that is such a cool concept, but all of the movies have sucked balls, you know?
I tried to send you the ARG, that the YouTube one. You should watch that, the Marble Hornets. That's stuff. So basically the setup of this movie is there's a woman who's estranged with her mother because her mother lost her fucking mind when she was a teenager and committed all these like really horrible murders. Like she was a nurse, like a caretaker, and she ended up setting the place she worked on fire, killing 24 people inside, and she murdered like another 6 after that. And like the daughter came home and she's like mutilating ravens on the cutting board and like in the kitchen and just acting completely off. So they are no longer cool. The mom's in fucking prison. But the girl gets a call from a friend of hers who's like a childhood friend that she's got estranged from. And he asked to meet up with her because there's something he needed to tell her. Meets up with her. He's like, hey, I haven't been doing well. I have been in these medical experiments to make money. And the last one I was in, your fucking mother was there. And she was in a coma and they were experimenting on her. And I think these people are going to try to find you and reach out to you. So cool setup, right?
Sounds like it, yeah.
How it plays out is there's this lab where they have this new technology. It's very similar to Come True, but Come True rocked and this did not. Where they could drop a person into the other person's mind. So when they did that, they kind of like they filmed it realistically, and then they dropped like computer graphics over it, which looked pretty cool. Like it was some like different stuff, and it just none of it really fucking worked though. There was so many cool ideas in it. Like the Vatican was involved, but like the Vatican were like these doctors / super soldiers that were like doing these like exorcisms where they would get the demons out and then kill it. The demon itself looked cool. This movie should have worked. And like Neil Blomkamp is a director I really enjoy. And this is probably my least favorite film. I like Chappie more than this. And Chappie was not great. So, and like even the demon itself looked fucking cool. It looked like a giant fucking like raven skull in this huge robe. And it had like maggots falling out of its stomach and rib cage open and shit. It was like 9.5 feet tall. But the movie couldn't pull it together. Like it just couldn't make all these interesting elements it had work. And the acting was weird. Like everyone seemed miscast. Everybody. And then they did another thing where they wanted to show the girl when she was a teenager, and she's like 30 something in this movie, right? And what they did was they just used her in a wig, and she's supposed to be 13. And it's like, That doesn't work. That's a woman. That's a grown ass fucking. She's taller than her mom. So it didn't land with me. I wanted to like it. I went in hoping to like it because I really wanted to see after Firebase what Neil Blomkamp could do in horror, because I thought his work in sci-fi, even though some of it didn't land, was always interesting and unique. So, but yeah, I'd give this thing 2 out of 5. It's worth like a watch if you have nothing else going on, but I'd skip it. I watched it on HBO Max. Yeah, that's Demonic 2022, Neil Blomkamp.
Well, even though you only gave it a 2 and you watched it, so I didn't have to, I'm interested just because I did love District 9. I did love Chappie. So, but the short was called Firebase.
Firebase. I will send you a link, and I'll put it on our Facebook next week after this episode drops, so people can check it out too. But Firebase is awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I wrote that down.
All right, so yeah, I'll definitely look forward to Firebase, and maybe I'll check out Demonic for myself, because it sounds like there are some style choices that might not have really worked, but it might be interesting to check out for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, do it.
I'm sorry, my phone started just making noises.
I know, I heard it. I was yeah. Well, the movie I watched, like Chris's first one, The Nanny, it was very not horror. This is The Apology 2022. It's a new one they just added to Shudder. I think it's featured right now. Yeah, I'd call it more of a thriller. Definitely more drama than horror, even. It follows Darlene. She's an older lady. She's hosting Christmas for the first. Oh yeah. What attracted me to this movie is Janeane Garofalo. I seen her name. She's in it, and I was like, "Oh, Janeane Garofalo in a horror movie. I'm gonna check this out." It also stars Anna Gunn, the girl that plays Skylar, the mom in Breaking Bad. So when I seen that, I was like, "It might be all right." Well, Anna plays Darlene, and she's hosting a Christmas party for the first time in like 20 years since the disappearance of her daughter, Sally. She's just been looking for her nonstop. She's a recovering alcoholic. And the night before Christmas, I believe it is, she's just kind of finishing some shit up. She gets this urge to drink, and she gets a knock at her door, and it's like her estranged ex brother-in-law. Yeah. It's her ex-brother-in-law, and she hasn't seen him in like 19 years. Like, he just kind of like left the family and shit. Well, he comes to her, and he has a confession, and, you know, hence the name, an apology. With her daughter missing, I'm sure you can basically guess what his confession was. But the rest of the movie turns into a whole revenge thing, a whole cat and mouse that all happens inside this house. And yeah, it is more of a thriller and more of a drama, and it has a lot to do with the mother's emotions about her missing daughter, and, you know, his confession and stuff like that. It was okay. I didn't hate it, but I definitely didn't consider it a horror movie. It's very trigger warning. It's very heavy in the sexual assault topic, you know, so if you're sensitive to that sort of thing, I'd skip this one. But I mean, it's all right. It was all right. I'd probably give it a 2.5 maybe, because I don't really consider it horror much at all. But
I almost watched this. I watched the ad for it, and it just kind of gave me the like a familiar feeling of like a million things I had already seen. So it just didn't really appeal to me.
Yeah, it is. It's more of a revenge thing. It's very dialogue heavy, like lots of just talking before, you know. And before any like action really happens, you know?
Yeah.
That's okay. It was okay.
Yeah, everything you're saying sounds pretty meh.
Yeah. So, that's my general feeling of the whole movie. It's meh. That's why.
And don't take this the wrong way, but like Janeane Garofalo being in a movie isn't going to put my ass in a chair. I'm sorry.
Well, I just recognized a name. You know, I was like, oh yeah, there's somebody I recognize. Let's check it out. You know. Yeah. And
although she was in a very criminally underrated horror movie back in the day called Clay Pigeons. Are either of you guys familiar with this?
Vaguely remember that. Very
title
vaguely.
sounds familiar.
Yeah.
It's Joaquin Phoenix and Vince Vaughn, and it's a Western noir horror movie where Vince Vaughn plays the most charismatic cowboy serial killer you will ever see.
I like Vince Vaughn.
Um, I know I'm sneaking this in there. I didn't mean to even bring up, but Clay Pigeons, fantastic '90s movie that not a lot of people had seen. It's great seeing Vince Vaughn as a serial killer. Look
It
at
definitely
fucking
rings
Clay
a
Pigeons.
bell, but I don't remember that at all. I might have to hunt that one
There
down.
was this weird boom where and Janine Garofalo was in this other one too, where the big comedy stars at the time, it's made these like little tiny serial killer movies. There was one where Owen Wilson was a serial killer called The Minus Man, and Janine Garofalo was also the FBI agent in that one. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she wasn't a major character. She played the neighbor, and she has, some role in it. She pops in and out, but she's definitely not one of the main characters in this movie. It was okay. It was just okay.
Good to know. Good
Yeah.
to know.
all right. Anybody got anything else, or
That's all I really got. Yep.
So to Daphne.
do you mind if I sneak one more in? That it's something I know Germ watched recently too.
Go ahead.
All right, go
I'll
for
make
it.
it quick. Just because I do want to talk about it real fast. This is a Wounded Fawn. It's a
I
Shudder
almost
original.
watched that. Yep.
Um, this one was a weird watch for me because there was so much great about it, but then other stuff that just didn't really land. It was very beautifully shot, very strange. There was a lot of very cool visuals in it that almost reminded me of a bigger budget Tone Deaf. They shot it on film, which I really liked because they actually left like the gradation and stuff in. But the ending didn't really land for me. Had they stuck the landing a little better, I would have loved the movie. But it's a serial killer movie that takes place in the art world. So I just wanted to
Oh,
slide that in there. I'll
I
give it
might like
like
that.
3.
Yeah, I almost watched that instead of this one. Yeah,
You'd
but
probably like it, Kelly.
I might with the whole art theme and stuff. I really loved like The Devil's Candy or a lot of movies or even like Bliss that throw in that extra like art element. I love those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that said, the art world stuff, it
Hmm.
kind of made me think of what I think the movie was called Velvet Buzzsaw. It came
Yes, I
straight to
watched that.
Netflix.
I watched that when it first came out, but I don't remember that one much at all. But I remember having mixed feelings about it. Like,
Yeah, that's
mm,
that's the feeling I got with this. A lot of cool imagery, some mixed
mhm.
feelings. Yeah, it's definitely worth a watch just because the imagery is so cool. But I think that there's a lot of lore that isn't explained that you got to kind of go back and look at yourself if you want to understand it more. If you
Okay.
don't want to understand it more, if you just want to look at it and enjoy the visuals, you can do that too. But the more you know about um, the art and the pieces that they're talking about, the more you're probably going to enjoy it. So I'm going to go with Big Dog Chris and say I'll give it a 3 as well. You know,
And Germ, can I ask you, was it the ending for you as well that just didn't stick?
yeah, it started off really strong. You know what I mean? With
I thought it
the
was
serial.
strong through most of it, but the way it ended, I think like negated the whole last act of the movie because you had to like figure out like how the fuck did they get to this point? Like that doesn't make sense, you know?
Right. It almost felt like we gotta wrap this sucker up. What do we gotta do? Okay, let's just do it. So
And then they do this long take as the credits roll with no music, and it's a main character pretty much just doing the same action over and over again. And I think that the length of time they had him do that, no person would even be alive for 30 seconds of it, let alone 4.5 minutes of credits of it. So yeah.
And now for our feature presentation.
With that,
Yeah.
I know we forgot to mention
What
it
movie
earlier.
we're talking about?
Yeah. We're gonna get on our bicycles and go into the velodrome of Spoiler Town. This is a Shudder original called Care Package 2 or Scare Package 2.
Scare package.
Or as I call it, I didn't much care for it, Package 2.
I didn't much care for
So if you don't want us ruining this for you, turn it off now. Come back after you watch the movie. It's a Shudder original. It just hit a few days ago when we recorded this, but by the time you hear it, it'll be out for a couple weeks. Yeah. Who wants to start on this fucking thing?
It had its fun parts, you know. It did. It was definitely overly satirical, you know.
I thought if you're uneven.
Yeah, it's definitely an uneven film, and you know, being a anthology film, where there's different directors and different filmmakers, different making separate vignettes, and then tying it all together with a wraparound story, where the wraparound story is a sequel to the first film, but the other vignettes, the other shorts in the film, you could watch separately. Is going to make it uneven, and you know, it might have actually worked better if they didn't have no, I know for sure it would have worked better if it didn't have the wraparound story. Like if they just
the wraparound story was awful.
It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
You know, it was very self-aware, and you know, it was like nudge nudge, wink wink, but it wasn't even just a nudge. It was like more like, I'm punching you in the face, wink wink.
Yeah, they did too.
That's what I was saying. It's not a nudge nudge, wink wink. It is a kick to the balls, double triple blink. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like they did not know anything about subtlety, finesse. No. I didn't hate the tone of this thing. I thought it was fun for the most part, but they just did not know how to build a consistent tone. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Right. 100%. And I probably should have rewatched the first one because I didn't remember much of it. I did watch it and I remember liking it. And this one, you know, it starts off with Rad Chad's funeral and all of his friends and people get drugged, and then they wake up and it's like a Saw type sort of environment.
Well, that's the thing is I don't even think you could call it a parody because they just did Saw.
Right. Yeah,
they had the little fucking dude on the bike. They had the fucking dude in the pig mask. They had the fucking traps and dumb shit. They just did Saw.
Yeah, kind of.
What I did like about it is that it was definitely made by horror fans for horror fans. You know what I mean? Because there are some references that no casual horror fan, no casual movie fan is going to be like, oh, that's from. Oh, I get that reference, or even gonna pop for the killer coming out of the TV and talking about your big break, bitch. Seeing, I shouldn't have had to look it up. That's my problem.
But while you look that up, that's my fucking problem with this movie is they didn't just pay homage; they just did the scenes.
Right.
You're right. You
know, like the scene you're talking about, they did the Dream Warriors. Welcome to prime time, bitch. They said the fucking lines. They did it exactly the same way. It's like these were great scenes. Let's do it too, you know. And it's like, well, you can pay homage, but you have to make it more of your own idea that it was influenced by this, and you're just like they straight stole shots from other movies, like the Black Christmas with the girl, her face wrapped in plastic in the rocking chair. They just did it. Like this, here it is. It looked cool for everything, or it looked cool for Black Christmas, so we just did it too. And they tried to recreate the fucking Black Christmas fucking house for that one, you know? And that was my favorite one of the whole thing.
Was my favorite one. And I also kind of liked the beer pong part where the guy's like, oh, is this good in college? And then he just kind of I enjoyed that part, but a lot of it, it was falling short for me as well.
Yeah, the first vignette with the final girls, that was the part that I laughed about.
And Buffy,
I was like, oh, this is pretty funny.
Me too, me too.
It just went downhill from there. It was like what was it? They're gonna die for sure girls or something.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's kind of funny. It's very self-referential, very meta. I get it. That's cool.
Yeah, I absolutely laughed at that with the Buffy character too. Like, you know,
I'm drinking and having sex, and you guys are dying. Ha ha. Yeah.
I did get a good crack up where she has the whiskey decanter and she's just drinking booze with a gravy fucking
gravy baster.
Yeah, like a great. So she's got a decanter, those are super fucking expensive. They're made out of crystal, and it's just full of booze, and she's walking around with it. with a gravy baster, just
turkey baster,
sucking it up and just pouring liquor down her face. I was like, that's kind of genius.
Yeah.
That should have been later in the movie, in my opinion, because I thought that was the strongest one.
Agreed.
And I thought the rest of the movie suffered by having the strongest one first. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think that they did it like how I try to book a wrestling show, is where I always want one of my strongest matches going first, so you get the crowd riled up and then drives you through the rest of the show. But I don't think that worked in the movie form, where we had our strongest right off the bat. And that they really relied heavily on masked serial killers. There were so many in all the different stories. Like, it felt like you were just watching the same shit over. There was the New Year's Eve one, and there was the fucking Three Men and a Baby one, and then there was the fucking, the
kind of Michael Myers sort of story where he had like the psychiatrist, like he's pure evil,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just feel like if they would have pushed the humor more, it might have been more enjoyable, because it was just like the humor didn't land, and then the horror didn't land because of it.
There was some certain jokes that did land with me, and I thought were funny. Like, I thought the whole like love angle with the bodyguard and the actor, where he's just like,
I definitely
I thought that
was
funny. That landed with me. There was a few things. There was definitely a few jokes in the Final Girls ones that definitely landed with me, because it was just like, we know horror. We're gonna get out of what we are to make sure we survive this thing. And here is what you want to kill. Here you go.
Right.
We put her in the basement for you. Have fun.
Yeah, they even tried dressing her up in like the 70s, like the Buffy character. They tried dressing her, like making her less sexy. So she, she's
right.
Like,
you're trying to kill us. Let's make her look like us, and
and we'll still be
they're like,
girls.
oh, she's still too hot, and they did the 80s trope or the 90s trope, where they're like, give her glasses.
Give her glasses.
Yeah.
But she's all that at her.
Yeah,
right.
they told her opposite. Reverse. She's all
reverse. She's all that.
Yeah, but it sucks that like the rest of the vignettes I can barely remember, and the wraparound story kind of for the most part killed it. It was and
awful.
I hate saying this because like a person that I call a friend is in the movie. Graham Skipper, he's the chubby guy with the beard. It's kind of douchey. The playing the ping pong or playing the beer pong.
Oh, he's the beer pong guy. Okay.
Yeah, and but I definitely popped when Kelly Maroney's in it. From Night of the Comet.
Okay.
She's into like a lot of 80s horror. Night of the Comet, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Chopping Mall, Zero Boys. So, when I saw her, I was just like, holy shit, that's very cool. But then I was okay, you're going to send her into, what was it, like a basement with a camera, and she's got to do a found footage film to survive. And
and they clunked you over the head with that too. Like you already knew what they were setting up, and then he had to say it out loud. Like footage that you don't see, but it's found footage. And it's just like, shut the fuck.
Man. They even had like the skinless guy from fucking Hellraiser. Like they used every horror cliche. Literally.
Right. But the problem is it didn't feel like they were paying tribute. It felt like they were cosplaying it. Like
kind of like a scary movie in a sort of way.
Well, no, because Scary Movie knew how to parodize. They were like, let's recreate these scenes because we loved them, and I'd really like to do them.
Yeah.
Yeah, just unfortunately, a lot of it just did not land. And I did like the cameo from Joe Bob Briggs, of course.
Yeah, I noticed
that. But unfortunately, myself, I got to give it just a 2.5.
I gave it a 2. Yeah.
I didn't like it. And I will say some good things about it. Okay. It did have good acting. The people were doing a good job with the material they had, it was a low budget film, but it didn't feel like that, at least in the performances.
No, it didn't.
It was funny seeing Bill Ponderosa from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and the wraparound story, which I thought was like, if you're going to have a wraparound story, you can't just do another movie as the wraparound story. They just did Saul.
Yeah.
I I thought there was one other high point in it, which was the throwback story where the guy was the author writing about his childhood, and they went and experimented on the dead body in the basement and all that. I thought that was a decent one. But again, they relied heavily just on mass killers in almost all these stories. So if you're having a anthology, you have the opportunity to be able to do all these different things, and it shouldn't just have been like slasher, you know, like they should have had like an alien one, and then a slasher one, and then they have they have
that weird cat one that used like the cat kind of from Pet Cemetery, kind of like it started with that feel, and then it was like the cat people, which took it to a different thing, but that one was weird. I don't know.
I'll say,
but yeah, go on.
Go ahead, Germ.
Oh no, I wasn't gonna say anything. I think that was the last one you were talking about. One of the last vignette where after the story was done, they said that if you can find 3 movies that referenced it, that you get to live. And it was like Reanimator, Pet Cemetery, and The Fly. Were 3 of the ones that were referenced in that short.
You know what this movie felt like? You ever walk up to like you're at a convention, like a horror convention or something, you're going up to a group of people that you may not necessarily know too well, and they're having like a heated, like not heated, but like a fun, like, oh man, I love this about this movie and this about this movie, and they have like their own inside jokes and all that. Like it felt like being the outsider in that conversation where they're just talking about all the scenes they loved and what they loved and recreating it, but you don't really feel included because you're not really part of their language or group, if that makes sense.
I can kind of see that vibe.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And especially with references from everything to 70s, 80s, 90s. Like if they had picked either a certain genre or subgenre or a certain decade, it might have worked better, but there were just too many parts that didn't land, and I really wanted it to be better. I actually originally gave it like 3 stars because I was like feeling generous, and then I was like, it's more like 2.5.
Yeah, man, it went down from when it started, just like you guys said. Like when it started, I was like, all right, this is gonna be good, and then it just started losing me,
Right. I think it's slightly over an hour, and it got to the point where I'm like, okay, how much? It became like a chore to
That's
finish.
what happened to me.
Yeah.
Like I very rarely do this, but like where like I'll be watching a movie and I just like kind of like hit the button on the scroll to see how far I am into it.
Yeah.
To see how much I have left, because I'm like, fuck, this is just going on and on. And I felt like I watched the thing for 3 fucking hours, and I hit the scroll button. It was an hour and 2 minutes in the movie, and I still had under 40 to go. And I was just like, fuck me up the ass. This is awful.
Yeah.
So uncared for it package 2 for me. I didn't like it. I think I'm being generous by giving it 2.
The final girl skit was funny, and like I said, I like the beer pong part, but other than that, 2. I think 2's fair.
There was parts I liked about the TV one as well.
Yeah.
Where they had the demons in the TV and shit, but
they had some good one-liners.
I watched this today.
Funny... Yeah, I watched it yesterday.
I have trouble recalling a lot of it, and I watched it today. But as we talked earlier, I watched Speak No Evil 2 months ago, and I could talk about every fucking scene in that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like this just did not engage me. It did not engross me. Every time it went to the wraparound story with the Saul shit, and they had the kid on the doll on the tricycle and the person in the pig mask, and
yeah, it's almost like
I fucking just checked out. I was like, oh my god, like I've already seen this bullshit.
Kind of like a Mad TV version of the horror movies we've all seen. Like it was just like a bad skit of them. You know what I'm saying?
Like I said, it felt very topical.
Like I said, it felt like cosplay movie making, where instead of either paying homage to or parodizing, they did a lot of recreating in a way that just felt boring. Like the scene in Dream Warriors where Freddy comes out of the TV is an iconic scene. I love it. It pops me every single time. They did beat for fucking beat in this, and I was just like, oh.
Right. Like instead of getting excited for these homages or remakes. Instead, it made me roll my eyes and just, how much longer do I gotta see this? how much longer, and it makes me feel bad that I was the one that suggested we watch this week. But we got it out of the way.
I made these people watch Hellbenders. Okay, like that. I got so much shit for so long about that, so don't feel bad. Bad movies happen. It's not like you fucking made the thing,
Yeah. Yep, I've picked my share of bad movies.
I think Hellbenders was another one that I really wanted to like.
Yeah, because I like witch movies and I like the rock and roll movies. Speaking of which, man, I found a lot of good rock and roll movies, and next week I might go all rock movies, but that's another topic.
Okay.
Well, that might work.
Let's do it.
Because what if we get a guest who did a rock and roll movie? Let's
do tell. Maybe we shouldn't tell. Maybe we should,
because we don't know for sure. Because we don't know for sure if we're going to get him for next week. But let's see.
I'll tell you what. When we do line that person up, and we're going to keep it vague right now, but they are going to be a guest. We just don't know in what order. Maybe we do like an entire episode of rock and roll and metal horror.
Yes,
and then instead of having a spoiler movie, we just talk to him about what he's done.
Yes, I think that's an ideal way to handle this.
I can dig it.
All right. Well, I will talk to said person and get back to the group ASAP. And we're ending this on a happy note of doing something exciting, doing some heavy metal movies, doing some punk rock horror, and going from there.
But not only that, our friend Germ here has lined up not only this person as an interview, but we'll have several interviews coming over the next couple months. So kudos for Germ for lining that up for us and taking the time to contact these people, and hopefully you guys enjoy what we got coming up. So yeah, we're gonna still have our normal spoiler movie episodes, but we're gonna pepper in some interviews and with not only like directors, but maybe writers or other people that have behind the scenes know-how. So hopefully you guys are interested in what we got coming up.
Hell yeah.
2023, baby, the year of Real Vile.
Yeah.
And with that, we'll get the fuck out of here. You guys all have a good one.
God bless America and send nudes. Hey, all you cats and kittens, all you ladies and lady killers out there in Real Vile land. This is your old pal, Mr. Germ T. Ripper, saying keep it spooky, keep it creepy, keep it real vile forever. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and share all our content. Ow!